Have you ever traveled through time? We do it every day.
Asgardia is a country with a population of more than 1 million people from more than 200 countries on Earth. Asgardia gives everyone equal opportunities, no matter what their earthly status is.
It is possible to create and live in the future right now. Are you ready? Forward progress is the solution to the entire human race. Our mission is to bridge new horizons. In Asgardia, there is no limit to the universal development in the fields of technology, finance, and arts. Asgardia is a new space and digital economy which creates opportunities for the global economy. We deliver innovations. Do you want to get on board with us? We are developing various kinds of digital businesses, attracting them to the Asgardia platform that can be backed by the means of our umbrella, i.e. franchising of the Asgardia brand. We can not only attract investments into space programs from prominent institutional investors, but also affordable amounts from the citizens of Asgardia. We comprise of more than 1 million people.
Asgardia is a chance to realize one's dream. This is a dream-driven space nation. Asgardia is a chance to belong to a community of free-thinking enthusiasts, goal-driven dreamers, and fearless innovators, theorists, and scientists.
We are the first space nation. One humanity, one unity.
Asgardia.
We are creating
the future.
In the morning, John, and you're just I see.
Well, on a Saturday, 9 in the morning is good for me to get up on 9 in the morning on Saturday.
I was up early. I was just doing other things like, jumping in the shower and moving paperwork around and talking to people.
Yeah. Yeah, because usually the way my Friday nights go is that's my movie night. So I'll cringe watch movies till like 4 in the morning and then go to sleep and wake up somewhere around noon. But I had to get up a little earlier today. So
I went to bed early last night because all yesterday I was at a librarians conference. So yeah. Those things are long and some of the sessions are boring.
yeah, well, you can usually find some kind of benefit from conferences, though.
Well, yeah, one of the interesting things, I had a session that was on the 250th here in New York State. And so it just happened to be held in the college library. And the librarian brought up from their special collections 3 signatures. And they were all from people who signed the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, wow.
So that was fascinating just to see their actual real signatures on something that was kept in the collection.
That's pretty cool. Yep.
Yeah, I geeked out on it.
I geek out on a lot of history too. I love going to the museums and seeing all that old history. I live in a house that was built back in 1839, so
my house I'm living in 1860.
Yeah. There's a lot of history right here. That's where I'm sitting. I mean, the Union soldiers come through here. They spend the night in this house. They burned down most of the houses around here, but they left 2 houses standing, or 3. And one of those houses, the captain or whoever he was that was in charge stayed in with his girlfriend, and then the other house, all the officers stayed in, and then all the troops stayed in this house. So,
Yeah.
so the three houses they used, they left standing. They burned down the rest.
Yeah, history is absolutely fascinating. I love it. It's my minor, archetypal studies, so I do a lot of history stuff. So
So,
yeah, the city I live in is Corning, New York, which is the home of Corning Glassworks or Corning Incorporated, which is a Fortune 500 company. So they literally built Edison's first light bulbs.
uh, well,
Greetings. How are you all
Good
doing? Welcome,
morning
everyone.
or good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to all of you. I have to say, from an extremely wet, windy, and cold Britain, it's 12 Celsius at the moment here. 12. And today is the most important day in the racehorse horse racing year. And I've just been going past the race course, and it's just awful. The poor people are getting absolutely soaked. Yeah. Anyway, I think we start. Thank you, everybody, for being here. John, you're looking very well. You're looking younger than usual, for some reason. Just for those who aren't used to this, if you're watching anywhere around the world, we are Asgardia, the world's first space nation, and our commitment is to make the first fully functioning community in space that lives there all the time, not some of the time, but all of the time. That means that children have to be able to be born in space as well. So our two goals are first, permanent human space habitation. And the second thing is the first child born in space. We don't have to have that child in space ourselves, but we want to make sure it occurs. Those are the two things. Now, a couple of logistical points. Today we are, if you'd like to join as a resident of Asgardia, by the way, then all you have to do is pay €100 per annum, and that €100 per annum goes to the into the world that we're creating, and it helps us to do our work. Now, today we only have one agenda item. It might be half an hour, it might be 2 hours. Don't think it will be longer than that. And it's to try and get progress. This is me keeping a promise. Try to get progress on a difficult piece of legislation, and that's the Asgardia Antarctica Act. That's the AAA, as we tend to call it. The background is the head of nation issued a decree and really, really is committed to actual territory on the Antarctica continent, and he does mean actual territory there. In short, at the previous digital sitting, we talked about this, and we had a first reading debate. And I think it's fair to say Parliament approved the first reading debate on the condition that we get some kind of a proper alignment between Parliament and those who are sponsoring this, which everyone's happy with. And that's what this session is about. We might not finish it today, but this is our opportunity to hear the issues, the suggestions, and an accurate description of an alternative proposal. Leading the discussion, I think, will be John. He's been very hard working on this and has concerns about what is being proposed. And so, promise made is promise kept. John has the opportunity to share all of his views on this today. We're not having a vote today, but we are having this discussion. There's just one logistical issue, and it's just a practical one. My daughter, there are birthdays going on in my family's house at the minute. In fact, I'm missing out on them by doing this. I have to do part of the chairing while I'm delivering them to a birthday party. So apologies for that in advance. So in about half an hour, I can carry on, but I'll just be shifting from here onto a different piece of software. So there's nothing I can do. Sometimes as a father, you just have to do these things, and I don't regret it, because we're doing this for our families, our children, our children's children. So in half an hour, I will shift. It doesn't really make a difference to any of you, apart from the fact that you'll see a steering wheel like this somewhere in the picture. It's a bit unconventional, but you only have children. You only have a child's 9th birthday or 5th birthday once. And so I just have to do a bit of driving. The compromise is, as long as I drive them to the party, I can stay with you. Okay, so that's it really. And my estimate is the meeting will take between 30 minutes and 2 hours. It just depends. I don't think it'll be longer than that. Let me hand over. I think I'd like to start with John because I did quite a lot of the talking and presenting the last time. And I think John Fine, that is in the best position to discuss the concerns he's got, and others have as well, because I think John represents a lot of people here. And also, pretty much going through his version. We went through the other version last time. I suspect we'll need to have a further meeting, but today is the day when we explore the options. I will say one thing from the outset. This is not my legislation, so I'm representing other people's views. But one thing that we need to see if we can resolve is the difference between symbolic territory in Antarctica and an actual territory in Antarctica. Those are two different things. I will also give you some feedback from the Prime Minister, but we'll do that later. I don't want to start with that. I'm not sure if John's available. The camera's gone off, but John would be where I'd like to start. John, is it okay for you to start? I think it's the right place for us to begin. Would that be okay with you, John? You're on.
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay, well let's keep to the promise we made. And so this is not I don't expect to be the main contributor today, but I do think you probably will be, and others here. So over to you, John. And as I say, just apologies for the logistics. I'll just have to shift from here. I'll leave this on, but from here to the car and then back to here again a bit later on. So John, over to you.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Hope we get this right.
Your computer's much faster than mine.
All right, which one are you seeing? The big one?
We're seeing Trade and Commerce and Foreign Affairs Committee on the left, and on the right, historical reference.
Oh, okay.
So as we can see both the slides, we probably don't need to see them both.
Right, how about now?
Trade and Commerce and Foreign Affairs Committee, AAA.
Okay, we're on the right one. All right, this is the Trade and Commerce and Foreign Affairs Committee, Asgardia Antarctica Act, AAA, sponsor updates. And I apologize, these slides were made quickly, and so they're probably not as good as my others, but all the information is there. Some historical reference on 18 April 2026, the Trade and Commerce Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee presented the Antarctica Act, or the AAA, on 27 March 2026 edition during the ALF meeting. The committees were subsequently informed that the act had been approved by the Chair of Parliament for first reading consideration. On 5-6 May 2026, the Parliament Coordinator distributed 2 versions of the Antarctica Act and advised that the latest version would be considered during the upcoming Parliament session. Following review, the sponsoring committees determined that the 1 May 2026 edition was materially different from the version submitted and approved by the committees. In the following graph, we have prepared an illustration to show that difference. This is legislative change metrics. The textual change in the document was actually 62% of the text was changed. The structural change was 67%. The intent of the document was 80% change. There's 41% new content added, and 36% of the original content was removed. Overall article drift was 69%. The So the breakdown of type of change: additions 41%, modifications 31%, removals 28%. The May 1st, 2026 version is not a minor revision. It represents a fundamental transformation in legal posture, operational framework, and legislative intent, shifting from a cooperative, non-claim based engagement model to a territorial sovereignty and ownership framework. The data above demonstrates that the changes are not cosmetic. They are substantial, material, and transformational, impacting the legal intent, compliance posture, and future implications of the Act. Committee response: the sponsoring committees formally communicated their concerns through Parliament channels and requested review through the Legislative Merit Review Group, LMRG. Legal assessments were subsequently prepared by the LMRG and the Minister of Justice. These assessments identified concerns regarding legal structure, process, and strategic alignment, and recommended further review prior to legislative advancement to first reading, so that the sponsorship and the material changes could be addressed. Parliament action: despite these concerns and recommendations, the 1 May 2020 edition was presented for first reading and subsequently approved by Parliament vote. Debate: since the Parliament session, the sponsoring committees have made multiple attempts to discuss and review the 1 May 2026 edition publicly, but committee leadership was repeatedly advised that further debate would be deferred until June ALF session, which is today. Procedural position: the sponsoring committees have determined that the version presently under consideration differs materially from the version originally approved and submitted. Pursuant to the Act on Acts, Chapter 3, Section 15, Item 6, the sponsoring committees are exercising their procedural right to withdraw the proposal from further consideration, pending resolution of identified review items and reconciliation of the legislative text. The sponsoring committees have established benchmarks to achieve before returning the AAA to Parliament agenda. This action is not intended to terminate the proposal, but rather to ensure that the proposal proceeds in a manner consistent with established parliamentary procedures, sponsor oversight, and applicable legal review requirements. The recommended benchmarks prior to reintroduction: of course, we want the Ministry of Justice to review and make recommendations. We want the sponsor confirmation, because currently the current edition does not have a sponsor confirmation. We want version reconciliation, constitutional compliance review, Foreign Affairs Act review, and international law assessment. Path forward: the sponsoring committees have prepared a reconciliation version based upon the May 1st, 2026 edition. The purpose of this revision is to address concerns identified through the sponsoring committee's reviews. And this version actually eliminates, out of those items that I showed you, all but one, which is the minister review, the justice review, justice minister review. The Legislative Merit Review Group, the Prime Minister we identified through sponsoring committees reviews, the Legislative Merit Review Group, the Prime Minister's observations, and the Minister of Justice assessment, while preserving the strategic objectives of the 1 May 2026 proposal and restoring alignment with original objectives established by the sponsoring committees. The following slides present this reconciliation I was supposed to take that part off because it comes later.
Don't worry, it's clear enough. By the way, these are very beautiful slides.
The strategic objective. Of course, our strategic objective is strengthening the Antarctica Act through alignment, stability, and institutional confidence. The sponsoring committees remain committed to the long-term objectives of the Antarctica Act and the broader vision of advancing Asgardia's international standing. Our purpose is to restore sponsor oversight and legislative continuity, strengthen procedural and constitutional alignment, improve legal defensibility and international credibility, preserve the strategic objectives of the proposal, build broader institutional consensus and support, present Parliament with a mature, stable, and sustainable legislative framework. The current position has procedural uncertainty, version discrepancies, legal vulnerabilities, limited flexibility, institutional friction, and risk to strategic goals. The version that I'm about to show you is procedurally sound, legally resilient, strategically aligned, institutionally supported, broad consensus, and ready for consideration. Our objective is not merely to pass legislation, but to build legislation capable of enduring scrutiny, supporting Asgardia's long-term interests, and advancing the recognition objectives we all share. The following slides present this reconciliation version for collaborative review and consideration by Asgardia leadership, ministers, committee chairs, and members of parliament, but only the areas that were restructured, because there was much of the act wasn't even touched. All right, so it has a little bit of color scheme going on here. If it's in black, there was no change. Red is areas that were concerns or may need change, and green was recommended change. That's how the colors go. And so up above, you'll see the version that was originally there. Down below, you'll see where we restructured it. And I'm just going to read the restructured portion. I'm not going to read the other one because everybody's probably already read it by now. All right, so acknowledging that contemporary international law recognizes both independent functional jurisdiction, free of territorial affiliation, and forms of territorial jurisdiction associated with lawful administration and recognized legal frameworks. This act establishes a lawful, practical, and internationally aligned framework for Asgardia's engagement, operational presence, and sovereign interests associated with Antarctica, while supporting the long-term development of Asgardia as a space-oriented nation. We believe this is structured much better, and it actually does more than what the one up above does as far as sovereign interest. It enters the sovereign interest associated with Antarctica in there. So, and this one here will pass all scrutiny. So, the core principles, the only one I think that was bothering us was the principle number 1. And so we restructured it. Asgardia shall pursue lawful measures relating to the recognition and sovereign administration of Asgardia territorial interests associated with areas referred to as Mary Birdland and Antarctica, consistent with applicable international legal frameworks. And we think that's that brings the scope of what we're doing in Antarctica to a better standing. So it covers both. It covers the strategic goals of the HON, but it also covers ours as well. So it's a good alignment for the committees. and there was no changes on the others. Legal authority, a slight change there, slight modification. We just thought the wording should be a little bit better than what it was. It didn't quite make sense to us. So all provisions herein shall be interpreted and implemented in a manner consistent with applicable international law. Furthermore, the Foreign Affairs Act provides the necessary framework for Asgardia's lawful international engagement, including activities associated with Antarctica's unique legal environment. So it doesn't do anything different than the other one. It just reads a lot better than the other one. The other one was kind of, well, it didn't flow legislatively. Articles, there was two changes, one minor, one a little bit more than minor, but we feel like what article that was there, it's too specific. It needs to be broader to cover all the areas because there's actually more going on in that article than just what they wrote. So what was changed. So we figured we need a broader article to title of the article. And the other one was just a slight little change we thought made it flow better. Legal status of Asgardian interest in Antarctica. And then on the other one, Asgardia indicative citizenship registries.
Indicative, yeah.
Indicative, sorry.
Sorry, it sounded like vindictive.
Indicative. Well, I do pronounce words wrong sometimes, but that's my
But
country.
you're saying Ariadne right now, which is good.
That's my country coming out of me. Okay, Article 2, legal status of Asgardian. We changed that to legal status of Asgardian interest in Antarctica. All right, because which doesn't change anything. Whether our interest is territorial, sovereign, or putting in a science station, doesn't matter. They're all interests, so it covers everything. It just does it in a broader way so that both our objectives are aligned with the HON's objectives. And our main objective is to have functional jurisdictions in there, and that was something that we, with science stations and stuff like that. That was something that both committees really was looking forward to. So we wanted the whole entire act to meet both the HON's of what he wants and then what we want. So, and that's why we did some restructuring. Okay, Article 2, legal status of Asgardian interest in Antarctica, 2-1, and whereas in Antarctica Treaty, the Antarctic Treaty of December the 1st, 1959, establishes the legal framework governing activities conducted by signatory states within Antarctica, which is closer to what it actually does, not what was written before. And if you actually read some of the law books that correspond with that, that in today's language is considered more to what it actually does. Whereas Asgardia was not in existence at the time of the adoption of Antarctica Treaty of December the 1st, 1959. We just thought that flowed a little bit better than what was written before. And the other one, 2-3, we're actually we felt that was a really negative vibe coming off that provision, and it really just makes Asgardia look bad. So we changed it to a more positive vibe. Says the same thing, but it's a lot more positive. And it says, whereas Asgardia continues to develop its international legal and institutional standing as a space-oriented nation. Basically saying the same thing as what that one does, just does it in a little bit different way. So that's why we mainly changed that. 2-4 4, whereas certain areas associated with Mary Bird Land remain subject to unique legal and geopolitical interpretation within the broader Antarctic framework. And because that is more of a true statement than whereas the territory of Mary Bird Land does not belong to any state of planet Earth and no one has made claims to it. That's actually not true. That is a falsehood. And so there are people who have made claims to it. There is a nation who considers they own it, that it is their territory, and they choose not to pursue that claim at this time because of the ATS. However, that nation has stated if the ATS has ever come out of existence or goes rogue, whatever, goes away, that they will reclaim that piece of land. So, and I'm sure that nation will do just that because it happens to be one of the superpowers or the only superpower on the planet today. So, and they fully believe that Mary Bird Land is theirs politically. So, anyway, so they did file a claim on it, but they never finished the paperwork. They never actually made the claim official because the ATS came along at the same time and they decided to go to the ATS instead. But that claim is still there. It didn't go away. So we thought it would be more appropriate to put whereas certain areas associated with Mary Bird Land remain subject to unique legal and geopolitical interpretation within a broader Antarctica framework. We thought that it does the same thing as what the other one does. It just does it in a way, a more diplomatic manner. Asgardia affirms its intention to pursue lawful functional jurisdiction, sovereign interests, and peaceful territorial engagement associated with areas referred to as Mary Bird Land in Antarctica, seeking future development through applicable. I don't know how to say that word. How you say that word, Lambert? AMICAB. Through that was one of the words you all put in there. But
I don't know. So I'm just trying to see. Amicably, yeah. That's the word you mean. Amicably, as in a
through
friendly
amicable and internationally consistent.
Amicable, yeah. So you just changed amicably to amicable. I can see what you've done there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's not a word that's usually said much, but anyway, we didn't change it. That should have been in black. Well, it actually is changed. It's amicable instead of amicably, but and internationally consistent mechanisms. So really, it's doing the same thing. We just think it flows a lot better than the previous text. Land area and geographical data. We just thought the way we arranged it flows a lot much better than what was originally written. The geographic areas associated with Mary Bird Land toward which Asgardia expresses territorial and strategic interests. And we actually strengthened the H-Alien's argument there because we expressed territorial and strategic interests and generally identified as follows: longitude approximately 72, whatever, and longitude approximately blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so, and then the bottom one, again, a slight change there. We just said the land area associated with the referenced region is estimated at approximately 1.6 million square miles. We just thought that flowed a little bit better. As in certain structure didn't change the intent of it, we just felt it flowed a lot better. 3-3, very small changes here. And again, we just thought legislative flow was a big problem here. And so given the territorial interest of Asgardia and Antarctica receive proper international legal recognition or status pursuant to applicable international legal procedures, one shall determine the land share to remain in the state ownership or administration of Asgardia, and the share to be lawfully distributed or registered among the residents of Asgardia. Okay, so this flows a lot better to the laws that have already been passed in Asgardia than the other one did, and that was but it does exactly the same thing as the other one does. It just flows a lot better. I'm getting an echo from somewhere. Anyway, uh, Article 4, of course, we put Asgardia Indicative Citizen Registries. It's just a much cleaner way of saying of the above, but it also covers everything that's going on in that article, and not just one area of it. So 4-1 area, small changes there. Asgardia, because Asgardia shall specify the registration of indicative digital property rights (NFT) for land plots as a free, non-remunerated option, not constituting a commercial or investment instrument attributed to Asgardian citizenry and reflecting Asgardia's prospective territorial interests as described in Articles 2 and 3. Because that's actually, we wrote that in because that's one of the things that our laws that we had determined through the LMRG, that anytime that something corresponds with another act or another law or another provision within the act, that we make those we put that within the act so that so you have better flow and understanding of what's going on. We actually strengthen the HON's intent with the putting in the prospective territorial interest as described in Articles 2 and 3 there. Also, but not warranted as present legal ownership, with potential subsequent transition to actual possession rights upon the lawful acquisition or recognition of territorial property rights by Asgardia under applicable international legal procedures. So we strengthened that article a lot more than what it was before, and we think this flows much better and corresponds with the processes that had already been developed in the LMRG and Parliament and Asgardia. 4.2, registration of indicative digital property rights, NFT, for land plots may be presented in a utility coin called Lunar, provided such presentation shall not be interpreted as present legal title, recognized territorial ownership, or a commercial investment instrument under current applicable law. Because we've been assured that it isn't, so we figured it was important that be put into the act as well, so that it could never be misused in the future, and it gives more clarity to that provision. Authority for engagement. We made small changes here, mostly for flow and alignment. Asgardia shall pursue activities and participation associated with Antarctica in accordance with applicable international frameworks governing Antarctica, consistent with its prospective international status, including scientific research, operational logistic participation, environmental incentives, and cooperative international programs. We think that strengthens that provision much, makes it more healthier. 5.2, again, small changes, or not changes, restructuring here. Asgardia shall reaffirm its right to pursue lawful measures relating to the recognition, protection, and sovereign administration of Asgardian territorial interests regarding the so-termed Mary Birdland, provided, however, continued abidance by applicable international legal frameworks and commitment to peaceful and cooperative use. So it does, we think we strengthen the HON's objectives here, and we also strengthen our own, so that it's in perfect alignment with the HON and us, and flows much smoother. And this one, just one small change. Somebody I've probably accidentally removed the word act because it really doesn't make any sense through the Asgardia judiciary as outlined in the Asgardia judiciary. So it should be Asgardia Judiciary Act because we were tying that dispute resolution into the Judiciary Act, which is where we're tying those two together, and that was our original intent. Article 12 is very minor changes here. We just thought it flowed much better. Following international recognition of Asgardia nationhood and pursuant to applicable accession procedures, Asgardia shall seek accession to the Antarctic Treaty of 1959 and comply with all its articles and provisions contained therein. I just think that flows much better. Upon accession to the Antarctic Treaty of 1959, it shall be required to amend the legislation of Asgardia as necessary pursuant to standard parliamentary legislative proceedings or at special meeting of Parliament convened for such purpose. And again, we just strengthened that a little bit. But, all honesty, we didn't even see why that article needed to be there. But for some reason, they want it there, or HON wants it there. That's fine. We can leave it on. We just strengthen it a little bit. Overall, the collaborative refinement of the Asgardia Antarctica Act. I'm not going to go over all the figures on the left side there. I'm just going to go over the right side. 73% retained, no change at all. Articles 6 through 9, no change whatsoever, and 10, one little minor restructure. And I'm going to say change. I actually mean restructure because there was 18% refined for clarity and alignment, and this was Articles 1, 3, 5, 11, and 12, and 9% restructured, improved flow. That was Articles 2 and 4, and 0% removed. No content was removed. So, key takeaway, through collaborative and cooperative, we refined the May 1st version to strengthen clarity, alignment, and compliance while preserving sovereignty language, core intent, and the operational framework Asgardia needs for Antarctica. And our commitment always is through this whole process, we proceeded in a spirit of collaboration, cooperation, and transparency, honoring each other's work to achieve the strongest act possible for Asgardia. The authority and reference framework, okay, because we feel like that we've been accused of being AI, having AI hallucinations by certain people have hinted towards that direction. And so we wanted to make clear where our authority and reference framework came from. And of course, the Asgardia legal authorities, we used the Constitution of Asgardia, Act on Acts, Foreign Affairs Act, Judiciary Act, Dispute Resolution Act, regulations on Parliament legislative procedures, and the relevant Parliament protocols and committee authorities. For international legal authorities, we use Brownlee's principles of public international law. We used the Antarctic Treaty of 1959, and yes, I have the actual treaty with signatures on it in my office here. The compilation of key documents of Antarctic Treaty System, ATS Secretariat. This comes straight from the Secretariat's office, and I do have a copy of that in my office here. The Antarctic Treaty System, Politics, Law, and Diplomacy. This is a book written specifically concerning Antarctica, and then another General Principles of Statehood, Sovereignty, Jurisdiction, and Treaty Law. We consulted all those authorities, which are well documented and well received by the international community and the rest of the world, and considered some of the top legal authorities in the world. Sponsoring institutional reviews considered. We use the sponsoring committee's reviews of course, the Legal Merit Review Group assessments, the Prime Minister's observations. Those had a big play in this. The Ministry of Justice assessment, which definitely had a big play in this, and relevant parliamentary discussions and committee deliberations. We went over all the deliberations that had been from the past, and they were part of the conversation as well. Our guiding objective to preserve the strategic objectives of the Antarctica Act while improving legal defensibility, procedural compliance, institutional alignment, and international credibility. And this is how the authority to revision traceability matrix, we call it, is how everything kind of ties in together. And of course, you have all the different things up top there, and they're going down into the reconciliation review. And it's basically just what I went over. So each change is directly traceable to recognized legal authorities, institutional reviews, and committee objectives. And as you see there, Articles 6 through 10, basically there's no change whatsoever. And then down below here, it shows each one. And I'll share these slides with people if they want to see them. But like core principle 1, Brownlee influenced that, Constitution influenced that, PM observations, committee review. And, and it just goes on with the others there, how we were influenced with each one. And there's probably more that could be written under those topics, but I just didn't have enough room in the slide, so I just had to limit myself what I put in. But and the result was a targeted refinement, not a wholesale revision. So we reserved the strategic objectives of the May 1st edition. We preserved the Antarctic focus. We preserved the citizen participation, and we reserved the recognition goals. We improved legal defensibility, constitutional alignment, procedural compliance, and international credibility. So that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me see. I'm not sure if you can see me at the moment, but I'm in the process of doing what I said I needed to do. Right, so questions. You've obviously done a huge amount of work on this, and that's very, very helpful. Just a question now, if you were to compare what you've done with the other versions, what would you say would be the key differences if you didn't use your notes? If somebody said, if somebody asks you to, in 30 seconds, explain the difference between what you presented and what was discussed at the digital sitting, what would you say without using your notes?
Well, it brings more alignment to the committee's vision for the original vision. It brings our original vision into better alignment with the HON's vision, and changes very little of the actual. It just all we've done is have increased better word flow and to create this alignment.
Okay. Let me open the debate up. But basically, we're not having a vote today, but what I want everybody to do is to understand what's been presented. By the way, this is the fabled journey I have to make. So I'll be driving for a short while, but then I won't be interrupted again today. I want everybody, first of all, let's do this in 3 parts. The first part is any questions about content or clarification. That's the first thing that would be really helpful. If you've got them for John, just raise your hand now if you can. If you've got questions or comments, I got 2 which I've been asked to raise. Okay, I'll ask the
Lambert, it's Mark.
Mark, yes, please, Mark, you go ahead. Good to see you, by the way. Just for those who aren't familiar with Mark, I'm sure you all do know him. He's the Minister for Justice.
Yeah, thanks,
you, Mark.
Thanks, Lambert. Hey, so John, I think you've done the team's done a very impressive job in what must be described as a challenging circumstance. And the challenging circumstance is this: one of the purposes of the act is, as you mentioned, international credibility, and another one must be international recognition. That has been something we've been working on. How will we get the world to view us as sufficiently credible to recognize us as a nation? And in that context, Lembit, I would say if you replace the word Antarctica with Montgomeryshire in that act, right? How ridiculous would it be that we claim to exert any form of territorial right over Montgomeryshire or the state of New York or any other territory that we want to put in there? The Antarctic is subject to a agreement, which, as John said, he has a copy of. We can't exert any form of right over it, even profess that we might have scientific rights over it. And to do so would be treated with some derision by governments around the world, those very governments that we're seeking to get recognition from. So the drafting of the act has endeavored to deal with that by saying, well, we would like to exert certain rights subject to international law. Well, international law is clear. We have no right to exert territorial rights or to extract tokenized value or to have a lunar, perhaps more like lunacy coin associated with it. All we're doing is we're damaging, in my view, the credibility and reputation that Asgardia has fought so hard for by professing to claim any form of right over another land, just as ridiculous Asgardia as it is Montgomeryshire or the state of New York. I understand that this is all work is being done in good faith to fulfill the vision of the head of nation. But ultimately, has the head of nation been advised the potentially damaging impact of professing to exert any form of right over a land which is subject to international treaty?
Thank you, John. Do you want to? First of all, it's good to get your feedback. I have to admit, just for those who are not aware, I just have to do a little bit of a journey for the sake of my children. It's a birthday party, bit unconventional, but that's parenthood. But I'll not be driving short. I'll not be in the car shortly. Not driving, not be in the car shortly. Couple of thoughts I've got. One is, how would you respond, Mark, to the idea that Mary Birdland? I'll just ask the two questions at once. That Mary Birdland isn't actually claimed by anybody. I mean, I may have answers to this, but I'm just putting these forward. That Mary Birdland isn't being claimed by anyone. And the second question would be, do you see any circumstance in which we could legitimately claim any part of Antarctica, bearing in mind that there are other countries that do have a stake for different parts of Antarctica, and therefore they have already set a precedent? After that, I'll go back to John. Mark?
Well, my understanding, at least, is that Mary Birdland is the subject of the Antarctica Treaty. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, the 1959 Antarctica Treaty, I think, explicitly discusses the Mary Birdland. I think John can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure. I've spent a huge amount of time looking at it myself, and the Antarctica Treaty seems to essentially divide the Antarctic in certain ways with countries who chose to be involved at the time. But incidentally, that's one of the complaints that some people have, that the Antarctic was cut up by powerful nations when other nations weren't around. But technically, you're right, Mark, and John will certainly clarify if I'm incorrect. But I think Mary Birdland was actually set up through the Antarctic Treaty and named after somebody who actually was the wife. Mary Bird was the wife of, I think, a gentleman who did exploration in Antarctic. John, am I correct about that?
You are. That's why it's called Mary Birdland. because a U.S. citizen is the one that actually uh, uh, did an expedition there, and that's why the U.S. State Department proceeded to do a claim like those other nations did. But in the spirit of diplomacy, during this whole process, the U.S. decided to uh, not complete the claim, but to instead go with the ATS, get behind the ATS and get all the other nations to get behind the ATS. They were like one of the principal people trying to promote the ATS at the time. So, and of course, now we have the ATS, which covers the entire continent. But U.S. still has that territorial claim on record, on file, whatever. They just, all they would have to do is resubmit it. But because it was an actual U.S. citizen that explored that region at the time, and he named it after his wife. So that's why it's Marie Birdland. But everybody says Mary Birdland, but it's actually Marie, but named after his wife. Yes.
I always feel a bit guilty after somebody says that because it's clearly Marie rather than Mary. But we got into the habit of saying Mary. Just one other point for those who aren't familiar. When I was a British Member of Parliament, my constituency in Wales was called Montgomeryshire. The analogy that Mark Beer is using is that imagine if somebody said, "Well, we're just going to own your constituency. We're going to call it our land." The interesting thing is, of course, nobody actually lives in Marie Birdland. All 1.6 million, as far as I know, all 1.6 million kilometers of it are uninhabited. Maybe there's a research station, but there's certainly no what you might call conventional population there.
Technically, the whole Antarctica is uninhabited. The only thing that's there is scientists on the research stations. They're not one part of Antarctica is considered inhabited by a population. They only have, so that argument holds over the entire continent of Antarctica. But,
yeah. Okay. So.
I think Lembitz,
Mark,
I think, again, if I may, that the logic of saying that we can distinguish between a claim on Mary Birdland and a claim on any other place in the world based on population, I don't think stands up under international law. It's not how we classify territorial rights.
Yeah.
And I think the suggestion that we are contrary to the Antarctic Act because we feel it was nations carving up the world. Well, much of the world has been carved up in the same way post the First and Second World War. But to take a contrary position to that act is hardly the position of an organization that wants to foster greater collaboration, recognition, and credibility with the international order. So, look, I just think we have to be careful here because, are we doing more harm than good? We have absolutely no legal right to exert any claim over the Marie Bird land. We have no right to tokenize in any way a claim, well, not least that doesn't exist. And to say we will exert a claim subject to international law is what we used to call a SOTBO, which is a statement of the bleeding obvious. I can make a territorial claim over my neighbour's garden subject to international law, which means I have no claim. So what's the purpose of the act, right? What are we trying to achieve here? What we're likely to achieve.
What's the week today?
Actually, no, that's my law.
Okay, perfect. No worries. You haven't been to the Derby.
No, I'm taking my kid to.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, fine, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and this is the exact. I agree with Mark there, and this is exactly why on this new version we changed the language to pursue territorial interests instead of claims, because we're not exactly saying that we're going to claim. We're just saying we have territorial interests in Antarctica, and that way the HON, whatever avenue that he wants to take to pursue that territorial interest, he can, and I think he can do it more diplomatically now without actually saying the word claim, and which would probably turn a few heads. and but he'll have a legal instrument that allows him to do whatever territorial interest that he wants to do. But because I don't want to take that away, but I think I agree with Mark. I think it's futile. I don't think it'll amount to anything. But he's free to pursue those avenues if he wants to, and the new version does just that. It allows him the freedom of pursuing those avenues if that's the way he wants to go. But it does it in a more diplomatic way, where we're not actually openly saying that we're going to claim territory, but we're just pursuing territorial interests in Antarctica. And however he decides to do that or thinks that might work, which I don't know which way that would be, because there's no way around the ATS. But the only avenue that we could find in our committees was the actual functional jurisdictions, which is currently how all international players do things. And in fact, there's actually two nations that became nations and claimed territory doing functional jurisdictions. And I had those in one of my presentations I gave before. They started out doing functional jurisdictions, and eventually the territory that they were on became theirs, and legally through the international channels. But they started out just doing functional jurisdictions, and showing the world that they could be a responsible partner in the international community. And that's what functional jurisdictions do. They show the world that you can be a responsible stewardship of not only the territory that you're on, but within the international community. And once you have proven that, you'll have every nation in the world trying to make you give you a territorial claim over a sovereign area, which can actually be negotiated diplomatically. Yes, there's a lot of processes that have to be done, but it's still, because some nations have done it this way and succeeded, it is still possible. But they took a much different approach than what the May 1st version did. But this version actually brings it back to where it allows the HON to pursue those territorial interests however way that he wants to pursue them, but it does it in a more diplomatic way to preserve the international credibility, we think. And because that, I agree with Mark on that as well. That one of our main goals before all this Antarctic stuff started was the international credibility. And the HON had said that was one of their main goals, is for us to have international credibility and to be recognized as a member of the United Nations. And there's more ways than one of becoming recognized as a partner in the United Nations. You don't have to have territory to become recognized as a partner in the United Nations. And there's other ways to do it. And there's certainly nations or groups and organizations currently, we're like, say, maybe something like the Red Cross, that have international recognition within the United Nations, and they don't claim territory. So, but they do have international recognition in the United Nations, and they participate in the actual diplomacy of the United Nations. And there's other instances such as that, other NGOs and what have you. And they all use functional domains to do that with. And a couple of those have actually gone on to become nations, recognized nations in the world. And they started out doing those functional domains. So, it's it's the current path that the international community recognizes. But this law will allow both paths to play out. If somebody wants to play out the other one as well, it allows both. So both can be played out. And if the HOM wants to go whatever route that he has envisioned, he can go that route too. But in the way we've written it, both can be done, not just one direction. We can go many directions. So anyway.
Rick, I'm hoping that Mark can stay with us because it's useful to hear his back. Ricky, next. Bye.
Who's next? Hello, who's next?
You are Ricky. You are Ricky.
Yeah, you're next, Ricky. Yeah. So I thought you had.
Okay.
I thought you had a signal problem. Yeah, you're next.
Yeah, kind of dropped that. Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay. See, if I'm not mistaken, currently the caretaker of the Antarctica Treaty, U.S. Now, if the U.S. says, okay, we're going to take a vote on it, then all the participating members have to take a vote on it. If one member votes no, then it's a no-go. Now, John was talking about, other ways of doing UN recognition as an organization. Well, that's all fine and well, but I don't think organizations are able to set up sovereign funds, which is something that most countries have now. They have their own sovereign funds to help finance projects and government and other things going on within their countries. So that, well, yeah, it would get us some recognition from the UN, but not what we want. At one time, and I don't know what happened, but Seychelles was in play. Don't know what happened there. I wish I did.
I can tell you. I'll tell you about that in a moment.
Okay. And I could see other locations that have good possibilities. Because once we're in space, then, sovereign territory isn't going to be that big of an issue. We'll be switching more to embassy status on Earth. But until that time, yeah, we do need to find sovereign territory. I agree with Mark Beer and what he says. I've said it's basically the same thing before. I agree with John. I wish it all the well, but at the same time, unless somebody's pulling a rabbit out of a hat, I just can't see it. I really can't. But hey, that's life. So tell us about Seychelles.
Well, Seychelles was, in my view, we nearly achieved the Seychelles in 2019. After events, we had meetings in Vienna, and then after the meetings in Vienna, I then went to the Seychelles with the then Prime Minister Lena de Winner, and we met, I think, the number two in the organization, the number two in the Seychelles political system, and we had a very useful dinner. We were probably with him for about 4 or 5 hours, and I was of the strong impression that yes, this was basically the way to go, and that it would work. Now, most importantly, my feeling was that the the Seychelles was very happy to accept us on the terms that we already offered. Think that they would have expected that they were going to make some financial benefit from being with us. I think that was probably their intention. And as a result, they weren't exactly doing it purely for reasons of charity and good faith. They actually wanted something from us too. That's my opinion. And I didn't have a problem with that because I understood their motivations. And that makes life very easy if you understand the motivations of the people that you're doing business with. So then I left, and for some reason, the discussions didn't go well in Austria. And to my horror, really, to my amazement, it never went further. And we actually lost our AMP on the Seychelles because he was so annoyed that it had not been fixed. My personal opinion is that the Seychelles is still possible because all of the conditions that were established then could still be established now. Nothing has really changed in terms of our viability in the eyes of the Seychelles. But I haven't returned there at this stage. I have spoken with Nigel Evans, the acting Foreign Secretary for us, and he's interested in that too. And there are two other places he thinks could do it as well. Nevertheless, the decree was about Antarctica, so we do need the perfectly legitimate to ask about this. But the decree was about Antarctica, and so that's what we're discussing today. By the way, Mark and obviously Mark can come in at any time because it's very helpful to have somebody with legal expertise here. John, let's go back to you.
Yes, well, what I was trying to explain, Ricky, is that it's a process. The the like I said, some of those nations that are nations now, they started out doing functional domains just like the organizations did, and then over time, they became nation states because they stuck with that process. So originally, they got recognized much like an organization would have got recognized. They were a player. They made the UN allowed them to participate in certain areas, and basically the world was watching to see what they would do, and eventually they proved themselves to be how you they proved to have all the requirements that would allow them to become a sovereign nation. And then they became a sovereign nation over the territory that they were on, which was not their territory originally. So, so it can be done because some nations have done it. Doing this, and this is a process that the international community now accepts. You have to kind of throw out all the stuff that happened in the past because most of that does not apply today as it once did. There's only, I'm trying to find it here in my law books, but there's only 4 ways that you can become or be granted sovereign territory or get sovereign territory. And, some, of course, one is to conquer the land, and I remember that one. But another one is through the diplomatic process, and that's the one that Asgardia would have to focus on because it's the only one that we actually qualify for. But that process takes time, and there's steps in it, and you have to take each step one at a time. And so I counter argue your argument that on the organizational thing because that is one of the steps. So if we just decide not to take that step, well, we're not going to be able to take the others moving on. There is no magic bullet that can get us from one point to another without taking all the necessary steps. And this is what I've been saying from the very beginning. the way these books read, there is a process, and you have to apply yourself in that process. If you don't, you're not going to achieve success in whatever it is you're doing. And this is the way the international community has accepted. This process is what the international community has accepted as the norm for international diplomatic uh, 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 processes. So, and anybody that tries to work outside that process, well, they're branded an outsider, and things don't go well for them. So, and because international law works much different than court law or judicial law or jury law or any of that other kind of law. It works entirely different because you have a whole lot of other things in play. You have treaties, you have agreement, MOUs, you have just a whole slew of things, and then you have the objectives of each nation that's engaged into the international law that you have to deal with, and all those players. Just like you said, the United States is the keeper of the current ATS. Well, and so yeah, then that's another element. So you got so many elements in international law that it's really hard to even understand to begin with. I mean, trying to understand this book, I've been steadily reading it, and there are just so many nuances to international law that becoming an expert at it can be proved to be difficult to anybody because there's just so many nuances. But the one thing I could pull out of it is a pattern, of a process, and that's what I've been trying to bring to this parliament is that process. So uh, even if the step is minor, it should be taken. If we can get that first step of getting international recognition as an organization, but again, that takes proof that they're not going to do it on our just because we wrote a Declaration of Independence or we wrote a Constitution. All right, we got to walk the walk. We can't just talk the talk. We got to actually put something forward saying, yeah, we can do this. And I haven't seen a lot of that yet. I've seen a lot of talk, but haven't seen a lot of walk. So, and that's what we've got to produce. We've got to produce the walk. We got to actually do that. So, and that's one of the things that I showed an implementation process to the original act that we had submitted, which can still work into this restructured version. It's just this restructured version allows both processes to flow, both the HON's avenue and our avenue as committees, what we originally had hoped for. And it allows both. So just by restructuring the wording a little bit. And that way, even if the aspirations of the HON, whatever they are, nobody really knows because that's not been made. Um, you know, we do know what he's aiming for, but we don't know why he thinks that can happen. And really, that's the missing piece here. We need to know the why. We need to know what makes him think that can happen. And obviously, he has gotten some advice or some kind of legal thing that he has gotten that has brought him to this conclusion. Well, it would be really nice if he shared that with Parliament because, I think we deserve that since we're the ones asked to write the law on it. And not just his aspirations, but the evidence behind them. I'm a systems guy. I like to see evidence. I like to read books like this one and all these others that I got by these top people that, in the international community, because this is evidence. This is real. This is something that is tangible, other than somebody's opinion or aspirations. And so I think that missing piece should be brought forward. Personally, that would actually help and strengthen our resolve in getting this matter resolved. But and Peter has asked repeatedly for that, the chair of the Justice Committee. And so, but anyway, but what I was trying to say, it's a process, and I, do I think that if we try to claim territory, claim their burden? No, because reading this law, this international law, it's a lot more difficult than people think, and and the way it reads, generalizing, I'm generalizing here, but there's no way for any organization to claim land on the planet Earth, period. And the only in all the ways that they've shown, the only way that you can actually do any kind of land claim is to be a state, okay? And so you have to have statehood first. That it's not statehood after, it's statehood first. But there's been states that didn't have statehood first and they wound up getting territory. How do they do it? And I said, well, there's got to be a way around. There's got to be a workaround. And so I looked at the states that did get statehood, that wasn't statehood first, and like Mar-a-Lago or something like that. I can't remember that. And then Sudan, I think, was one of them.
Mar-a-Lago is where Donald Trump lives. I don't think
No,
it's
no,
an
not. But it
independent.
was. It starts with an M. Anyway, I told you I didn't remember, so don't try to
Yeah,
embarrass
no,
me
no.
in front of
I'm
people.
not trying to
But
embarrass you. I'm not trying to embarrass you.
the anyway, so I think one of them was Sudan, but the how did they do it? And they did it through functional jurisdictions. And that's how I came up with the whole idea of functional jurisdictions, because I knew there had to be a workaround. And functional jurisdiction starts out pretty much uh, like say an organization like the Red Cross does. It's just getting that first recognition, that first way into the big table, actually to the little table. You don't get to the big table yet, but that gets you to the little table. The little kiddies table that I talked about earlier in one of my discussions. You get to sit at the little kids table, and actually it's a third table, a table overlooking the little kids table. But and then eventually that gets you up to the little kids table, and then eventually, if you keep pursuing it, you get to the big kids table. And once you get to the big kids table, guess what? You're in. You're in their system, and you get what you want, which is exactly what Sudan did and some of these others. So they started out small with this functional jurisdictions, which is perfectly accepted in the international community, and they worked their way up. And so what we did is we restructured the May 1st, so both avenues, whatever avenue that the HON wants, since we really don't know what that avenue is, we have not been given clarity there, but the specifics and the reasons why he feels the way he does. But whatever it is, I'm not going to question it. He has that authority under this new restructured version, and we have the authority to go to functional jurisdictions if we want. So both can go into play, and so because I realized ultimately the committees realized there's no way that we could read the HON's mind is to figure out exactly what it wanted. So we just went ahead and made both approaches achievable and through law, but we done it in a more diplomatic way. So and I think this is a good start. But anyway, yeah. So what I was trying to say is it's a process, and if we play that process, it's like when you first start playing piano, you don't learn how to play piano all at once. It starts out one note at a time. And then eventually you work your way up to playing a melody. And this is the same kind of process. You start out slow with small steps, and then you work your way up to the big step, which is what we originally want, is territorial. And we can do it. We can achieve it, but we have to play the game right. If we don't play the game right, it ain't gonna happen. It's just like piano lessons. You don't start out with that. I can't remember what it is. Usually, people usually play it first, but anyway. But you don't start out with learning those few notes first.
Scales.
The scales. There it is. You're not going to learn the rest, and that's what we got to do here. We got to learn the scales first, and then we can work our way up to the melody. But yeah, that's my perspective.
I think the land you might be talking about is the Bir Tawil, which is actually a strange piece of territory because neither Sudan nor Egypt want it. They both refuse to own it. I've always thought of that as a potential option. Then the other two are the Halab Triangle and the Abyei area as well. I'm not an expert on territorial disputes in Africa, I have to admit.
Lembit, I think the countries that John might be referring to are South Sudan and Namibia. Would that be right,
Namibia.
John?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes, that's an interesting area, the Namibia issue. I was actually quite involved in that in the 1980s, but for different reasons.
Well, if those because those are the only you might describe as functional jurisdictions that were then recognised, but they were functional insofar as South Sudan. There was a comprehensive peace agreement. There was under that agreement there was power which was allowed to be exerted, and then that power over the territory with government of the people was granted recognition by the United Nations. For Namibia, the same. They were exercising functional jurisdiction over the actual territory itself. They didn't claim. It wasn't a claim. We have a claim, and that's enough. And if we have a claim for long enough, we're going to get jurisdiction. They actually run the country. There's no suggestion here we're going to be running Marie Byrd Island. Indeed, there's no suggestion at all that we have a legal claim. What John's saying is, even though we don't have a legal claim, this gives the head of nation the power to do whatever he wants to do. We don't know what he wants to do, but it would give him the power to do it. But as I say, I can pass the act over my neighbour's garden and say, I have my neighbour's garden and any claims associated to it are subject to law, which means I have no claim. What's the point in passing it? Well, the point in passing it must be because it's effective. What's a valid law if it's not effective, right? So if it's not effective and we're passing it, what does that do to our credibility? And that's the point I'm making, is that we're considering a law which has no effect whatsoever legally, and it says as much, which has no precedent, because the functional jurisdiction argument is only one of nations that existed as geographical territories with authorities that were running them for a period of time, which were then recognized. That's not what we're proposing here. And so the only impact I can see is on the credibility, because as John rightly pointed out, we're not even at the kids' table. We're at the pre-prep stage. We're at the kindergarten stage. And what credibility are we ever going to establish if we initially present ourselves as a child in a kindergarten? And I think there, as I put in my note, John, to you, I think there are far more effective ways of achieving recognition than this approach. And I'd ask that we consider them as in replacement to what I think is going to be a process under this act, which would bring Asgardia, if not necessarily into disrepute, it will certainly bring Asgardia into the limelight as being internationally incredible. And that's the opposite of what we want to achieve.
Are you saying that this version, are you applying your commentary to this version as well then, Mark?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this version is, it's a considerable improvement, but it still suggests that there may be claims.
Okay.
And even if I don't go that far, even if it just says that in the situation where there are claims and we don't, let's say the law says this. The law says we don't know whether there are claims or not, but if there are claims, then we exert some rights over those claims. That's not a law. That's
Mhm.
not a law. You don't pass a law to say, in the situation that the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, then we will own the sun. Okay, fantastic, excellent law, but pointless law, incredible law, and not necessarily the route we want to go down if we want to establish ourselves as a credible, well-governed digital democracy. So
Mhm.
that's the point that I was making on behalf of the Ministry of Justice. Unpalatable as it may be, at the end of the day, it's our responsibility as ministers to ensure that the government gets the best advice it can in relation to the matters put forward. And that's the best advice I can give you. I think this is
Mhm.
something that requires much more careful consideration. I would pause on the Asgardia Act, the Antarctic Act, and look
Mhm.
at alternative ways of establishing credibility. The Seychelles being by far the strongest example of a way in which we could claim some form of autonomy over physical land, built on which we can then move forward with getting recognition based on the post-Westphalian, United Nations principles of a nation. That would be my preferred route. I'm going to say no more. I think I've said enough.
Thank you. Just a quick question, Mark. When I was in the Seychelles, I had the strong impression that they would be willing to give one of their uninhabited islands, of which they have like something like 100, and that they would actually be willing to cede its technical status to that of being a recognized country in the form of Asgardia, because they did not perceive any threat from us. They didn't think that we'd do anything other than good, because I think they would expect it to uplift their tourist industry to an extent. Um, are countries allowed to do that? Could they, if they wanted to, say, yep, you can have island number 47B, and we will let you have that as your own country? Is there any obstacle for the Seychelles doing that?
None whatsoever. In fact, we're finding more and more nations are willing to cede ever greater amounts of jurisdiction by way of constitutionally, whether ratified by Parliament or whether by head of states. They're willing to grant pieces of land that have never been developed, and they're willing to effectively cede jurisdiction over those for almost every purpose, bar, obviously they want to hold back national defence, national security, foreign relations. Those are things that governments hold dear because they're sovereign. But for almost everything else, countries are willing to say, you can have this island and you can operate it under your rules, your governance, your parliamentary system, your name. That's feasible.
This is just a joke for the British and American audience. Maybe we should ask Keir Starmer to give us the Chagos Islands, because then he'll pay us. But it's a rhetorical comment.
Let's not go there.
Yeah. Let's not go there. I don't think Keir Starmer should have either, but that's another story. We're on to, thank you for that. Then we got Ricky, Ada, John. At the moment, I'm not seeing anybody else. Unless somebody else raises their hand, I'll try and summarize the session. But Ricky?
Yeah, I agree with John. And I've said that before. He went into his explanation. If the Seychelles were willing to do that with one of their islands, that'd be great. Philippines has islands. Some of them have people on it, but that can be dealt with. They can be technically Asgardian. They would not be able to pay like we could because, economic differences, major economic differences. But Asgardia could help improve their lives, better job opportunities, things of that nature. Educational opportunities, because also later on filter into the wider education system of the country. Another example of a country that had jurisdiction without being a country at first is East Timor. Used to be just Timor, and then they had a big going on, and then eventually it became Timor and East Timor. There's been a couple other places here in Southeast Asia that did the same thing. I can't recall which ones they are at the moment. Also, too, wasn't Asgardia at one time in the UN's or participating in the UN's basically their space council? And I heard that we no longer are. Why is that? You know, why give up something that you're working towards anyway by leaving a certain organization within the UN? That makes no sense. You know, and there's other, you know, like Mark was saying, you know, there's countries that are willing to give up things as long as it doesn't mess with their national security and stuff like that. Canada is a good example. The United States, certain countries in South America, possibly Argentina or Chile. You know, these are areas that can be looked at. And also, too, you know, the Han needs to tell us what his thinking is instead of us running around chasing our tails. That makes no sense. If he wants us to be able to come up with legislation that actually works, we need to know where his brain is. We need to know what his thoughts are and his feelings are on the matter. Not just, okay, I'm up here in this glass tower, you know, and you're going to do what I tell you. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and do it, but tell us why. Don't just have us guessing at it. It makes no sense. It's stupid. It's just totally stupid. And I know he's probably listening to this. You know, he can be mad at me, and that's fine. I'm an old man. Doesn't matter. But I want to see Asgardia successful. I don't want to see it laughed at. I don't want to see our people laughed at. I want to see it succeed and do what it's meant to do. That's all I got to say.
Okay, I can tell you without having to check. The head of nation wants two things: that we are recognized as a state, and he wants us to kickstart the economy. And I think this project is intended to do both. Ricky, Ada, John. Oh, sorry, Ricky, you've just spoken. Ada, sorry, John. Ada, then John.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you. There's an echo. You've got two microphones open. Oh.
Okay, can you hear me now?
That's fine. That's good now, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, give me a second so I could put this up. Okay. I'm going to, because I wrote it down. It could be, I could read it and put it as a question so he could answer it. John Fine could answer it. I have several, but at least at this point, I'm gonna read what I wrote over here about the document. So, John, the LMRG report shows we have a gap between our symbol intent and our operation legal language. To protect Asgardia while giving the head of the nation a clear victory, we need to adjust the test focus on the symbol expression functional jurisdiction. I have three keys point present. Like one is protect register, We must change the phrase digital property right for a land plot to a simple digital registration, calling it in a property right of a future guarantee create massive legal exposure under Consumer Protect and Digital Access Law, even it is free. Second, naturalize the sovereign. I'm like young trying to say this word sovereign claim. The phrase should take legal steps to claim territory sovereignly directly violate Article 4 of the Atlantic Treaty System. We should reclassify this as a non-blind, non-term national aspiration. Meanwhile, so it maintains a safe symbol gesture. 3. Focus on the function jurisdiction. This is our real straight Asgardia can legally exercise function jurisdiction over our nation, citizens, scientists, mission, space ground platform, and infrastructure to total without unlawful trying to claim the physical land of Antarctica. The act to be accepted with target amendment rather than reject. Adding the global interpretive clause at the end of the act as a legal shield explicitly stating that this is an international policy framework and a symbol vision, not a commercial property. Shine on the international territory bypass. I hope I explained myself.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's very well thought through. As I said before, I'm not here to negotiate, but you put that in the record, and John may have something to say about that too. At the moment, John is the last speaker. If nobody else raises their hand, I will summarize our meeting. John.
Yes, thank you, Ada. That was very thoughtful, and I did get your uh, and I'm talking as the LMRG chair now because the act is actually in the LMRG for second reading. Even though the sponsors have retained their control of the act, I can still make edits within so I will take your suggestions. I will apply them. I will first see how they correspond with the text and then how they correspond with existing law. And because I do this with every suggestion that comes in, first I run it through the mill, is what I like to say. I run it through a process, and believe it or not, I call it the Mark Beer process. So, Mark Beer, credit to you, because a lot of the processes that I use are actually originated from your own legal reviews that you did on some of the original acts. So, I run it through this process, and once it comes out, I get a what can and cannot be added. So, and I will run yours through, and all of them sound like great ideals. I won't take that away, and I'm sure they're going to add value to the text. And of course, this is what the LMRG is for. Anybody that has a suggestion, that suggestion is seriously taken and considered, and then if it does add value to the text, we put it in there. So I haven't done that yet because I was spending so much time preparing for this presentation, but I will do it. I can guarantee you that. Um, what Ricky said, I want to say something about what Ricky said. Ricky gave a perfect example of what Asgardia could do. And this is when he was talking about the Philippine Islands. He said there's some islands there with some people on it that Asgardia could negotiate a functional jurisdiction over. We could go in and improve the economy of these people. We could make them Asgardians. You do that quite easily just by paying their resident fee and improve their economy and approve, and these are the kind of things that the international community wants to see. They want to see us actually functioning as an authority, as an establishment that can do this. We saying we're illegal, we saying we're a government, but they want to see us actually do that, actually play that out in real time. So, and that's what a functional jurisdiction does. It plays it out in real time so that the international community can see you and observe what it is you're doing. And the example he gave with the Philippine Islands, now I don't know if that could be negotiated, but if it could, that would be a perfect example, And to his credit, that was the island that he mentioned. What was it? What was it? What did he say?
Hey, Sal, which one?
No, the one that started with the M.
Not Namibia is.
No, the one Ricky just mentioned. Ricky, what was that one you mentioned?
Timor and East Timor.
East what?
Timor and East
Timor. Okay, yeah, that was the one I was actually referring to. Actually, the way it's actually the one I was referring to was Timor Leste, which is probably the same area. And they did not start out as and they actually got their, believe it or not, they went from being a functional jurisdiction to a sovereign nation very quickly. Whatever they did it right, and it's amazing how quickly that they went from one to another. But they played all they played. Yeah, they played all.
A lot of bullets.
Oh, they used a lot of bullets. Is that what it was? Okay, but anyway.
No, okay, that doesn't really apply to us. We haven't even got an army.
Well, we can't do that. But anyway, so. But the whole Philippine Island thing, that is great. That's a great idea. And see, I would fully support that because that is accepted by the international community because we actually move in there, we improve their economy, we improve their lives, we improve their schools, we improve their medical. This is us actually functioning as a nation. And then that's proving ourselves and saying, hey, we can function as a nation. To the international community. And that's what the international community wants to see. And once we do that, then we get that statehood, And so Ricky's example is a perfect way to do that. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So, yes. But now this new restructured allows both avenues to play out. Whatever the HON wants, which we really don't know, because we don't have the why behind it. We just have the how. But or we just have the aspiration of it. We don't have the how or the why. But whatever that is, if he chooses not to tell us, that's fine. He still has that authority under this new version, or we can go the other way. The other route, the route that the international community accepts. Either way, it will both work. And I know one works. I don't know what the HON, how he plans to get there. And that's the part that bothers me. I'm like Ricky, that's the part that bothers me. How's he planning to get there? Because he obviously has a plan, or he wouldn't come up with this in the first place. But I think that Parliament deserves to know how he plans to get there. and we haven't gotten that yet. And because if we had that, we could have better prepared for this whole process than what we've currently done. We've actually wasted a lot of time that we didn't need to be wasted had we had that at the very beginning. Because you can have a person's aspirations, but those aspirations can actually go all kinds of different angles. So in order to narrow that down to a workable path, you have to know all the other avenues in those aspirations, and that's what we don't have. That's the missing piece. So, but anyway, regardless, if that stays the same, that's fine. I'm good with that. We've given the HON that ability to do that, however he plans to go with it. But we've also given the ability to go with the functional domains and the different, you can have zones, what you call economic zone, participation zones. You can still play those out under this restructured one. So both work in the restructured act. But I am in full agreement with Mark that I think we need to pause and hold and reconsider all avenues before we even continue to go. And that's why the committees have asked for that in order for this legislation to move forward out of the committee, because we have pulled it back into the committees, which is what we are allowed to do by the Act on Acts. In order for it to come back out of the committees, that we have to have the review from the Minister of Justice to move forward. And that's one of our key state or the key principles that we want to achieve before we send it back to the Parliament chair for to put back on the agenda. But once we have all this revised version fixes all from 2 to 6 on that list. There was actually 6 items on that list. 2 to 6 is done with this new restructured version. But I can't do that one because by Parliament procedure and by the Act on Acts procedure, that is one of the problems. I'm getting an echo. Somebody's got a mic on somewhere. But in order for it to go further when it's been pulled back to committee, it has to be represented to the Minister of Justice and the Parliament chair, which is all acts originally have to be presented to, and because this is actually a new version, it's not. We're not. It's actually because the May 1st version, the committees have agreed we will not put our name on that version because, and we didn't, because it's as I've shown in the presentation, it's totally different than our original version. So, but we will put our name on this restructured version, and then it can regain its. We can get control over the version control right now. There's uncertainty as to who owns the May 1st version because we will not put our names on that version, and because that's not something we created, but we will, in the spirit of collaboration, we will put our name on this new restructured version, which is restructured from the May 1st. It's not got a lot of the information that we had in our original version is not in this new version, and but it's still aligned with what we originally wanted, just by restructuring a few words. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else before I summarize and close the session, which would have been 2 hours as I thought? Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for everybody who has been involved. It's an interesting conversation. I'm going to make 3 summary points and then I'll finish, and we will finish. The first one is there were quite a lot of comments in the chat. wouldn't having territory in Antarctica totally go against the Asgardian stance, so we do not get involved in earthly politics. We do need to get territory. The head of nation now accepts that we need territory in order to be recognised by the UN. We've tried to do it a different way, but we need territory somewhere, whether it's Antarctica or Seychelles or Belize or anywhere. We do need it. Just continuing here, our endemic territory is not on Earth, that's right, but for now, that's all what we can do. One theoretical possibility is that we claim land on Mars or the Moon, but we still need the United Nations to recognise us, and that might be difficult if we just got extraterrestrial territory. We've gone through, Ariadne says, we've gotten through many blind spots, such as believing that we needed to be part of the Montevideo Treaty, and we did not. So it is true that this is a process. I think probably we do need to be recognised by the Montevideo Treaty. That's work that I and others did some time ago. And there are four, I won't go through them again now. There are four things in the Montevideo Treaty that we would probably need to fulfil. And it looks like we do need territory for that. If rockets can be launched from the Seychelles, then great. Well, it could be because it's on the equator. Best place to launch because you're already traveling at 1,000 miles, about 1,600 kilometers an hour. This is amazing, John. Fine, congrats, says further. Yeah, and lots of other comments as well. So thank you to everybody, Carol and Ariadne and everybody else who's been contributing. Derek Newhouse, that was his comment I started with. Just one more from Ariadne. What I understand is that the point is that if the countries of the world accepted the treaty, it's because they already existed, unlike us, who are new and not recognised. Right, okay, thank you. Second of 3 points. Oh, I think, yeah. I'll come to you at the end, Ricky. Second of 3 points. What happens next? What I will do is, we've got a record of this meeting, of course, and the treaty, as you put it forward, I'll in the format that you've done it, John, without changing it, I'll put it into the relevant people for consideration. Remember, I'm not responsible for the legislation. I'm responsible for the process of the legislation. So I need to send it to various people, including head of nation. And all I'd ask you to do is make sure that I have the very latest copy once you consider the points, John, that Ada and others have made. So I will wait for you to tell me the version that you want me to send forward, and I will do so. And the third and final point is, I know that this is important to the nation, but I will pass on the point that you have made, that we're trying to establish the clarity of the motives for what we're doing as well, and his thinking on this. I think it's fairly straightforward. He wants Asgardia to be recognised as a nation, and he wants territory in a way that would make it economically viable. I would certainly be happy to live in Seychelles for 6 months of the year. It's a nice place. Doesn't have much disease. No one wants to attack it, and the weather's great. Let me go to, so that's basically where we are, and hopefully we have fulfilled the promise I made to have a debate without trying to just persuade everyone that the version that you passed at first reading was the right one. And therefore, that's what I suggest I will do after we finish. Ricky, then John.
Yeah, give me a call right after this meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do that. I'll do that after the meeting. I will do that. Yeah. And
All
John,
right, thanks.
last. Thank you. Last word to you, John.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I thank you for what you said, and I will do what you asked. I was going to suggest, and you already did, that I first consider Ada's additions before, because those just came in last week, and I hadn't had time to actually review them and go and run the process through them, and then see where those additions would be put into the newer version. And so I will do that. I will work on that very definitely. I will probably spend the rest of the day committed on that and try to have you the completed version by next week, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. Thank you. Thank you for doing
And
that,
I
John.
will share that with Mark as well, so that way we can take care of that first item as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. And just checking that was you, John, and not seeing anybody else wanting to come in. So what I'll do. So thank you, everybody. An interesting and mature discussion. My feeling is that I won't repeat it in detail, but my feeling is that once John gives me his version, the right thing for me to do is to share it, including with the Prime Minister, because let's remember he's also a lawyer. Obviously, you've said to Mark, and Peter Morn should see it as well, because he is chair of the Justice Committee. And by doing those things, then hopefully we can get to a result which is good for Asgardia and legally acceptable and fulfills the conditions which have been set out here. I'm sorry. Thank you. Right, it's basically winter here now. It's like 13 Celsius. It's really cold. About 60 Fahrenheit, 57. Thank you, everybody, for being involved. There's not much more for me to say. We're back to business as usual, of course, on Thursday with the chairs meeting at 1700 UTC, and then the parliamentary meeting at 1800. I'll also be able to confirm all the details of the timing for the next digital sitting, which is coming up fast. But we don't need to do any more today. You have been generous with your time, almost exactly 2 hours. And thank you more than anything to John for all the effort he's made and for the contributions made by Mark and everybody else who's spoken, in fact. So with that, let me finish by saying if you like the way we do our politics, which I think is mature, then please do share the good news about Asgardia's existence and the way in which it operates, and ask people to join. And if you're watching and you like it, please, it's €100 a year in your currency, and you'll be able to be a full member as a resident of Asgardia and eventually a citizen. Now, we are here, remember, to populate space in a responsible way, and we don't want nobody wants everyone to live in Antarctica, but we want millions to live in Asgardia, because unlike most nations, we have no army and we don't need one, because we argue with words, not wars. I'm Lematopic, and we actually had 36 people in, actually 38 people as I see now. Thanks to the chat as well. It's always very interesting to see that. And with that, I hope that you have a good weekend. Ricky, I'll call you in a few minutes' time, and then feel free to contact me at any point. And once again, thanks, John, for being so absolutely useful, and Ferda says that, and Jason and others too. All the best, and good day. We can stop the broadcast when we get to